Hello, welcome back to Mr. Kennert's online math class. Today's lesson will be a continuation of 2.2, adding rational numbers, and this lesson will be focused on decimals. Please turn to a fresh page in your math notebook and write the headline, and then you will be writing down 5 different things in your notes today. Alright, make sure you got this written down. You can pause the video now. And here we go. First thing that we need to write down is some rules for adding rational numbers, and we're going to actually use the same rules that we used for adding integers. So the same rules for adding integers, if they have the same sign, we can just add them together and keep that sign that the numbers share. If they have different signs, then we can subtract the smaller number from the bigger number and then keep the sign of the larger value. Absolute value. Pause here, make sure you get these notes written down in your math notebook. Alright, let's go through a couple examples. The first thing that we need to remember when we're adding decimals is that we need to line up the decimals. Make sure that you line up the decimals. So if we look at the first example, negative 4 5/100ths plus 7 62/100ths, they have different signs. So we're going to subtract, and we're going to subtract the smaller number, which is that negative 4 5/100ths, from the 7 62/100ths. Okay, so you'll see here the bigger number is on top and the smaller number is below, and we lined up the decimals, and now we're ready to do some math. 2 minus 5 we can't do, so we need to borrow. This becomes a 5, this becomes 12. 12 minus 5 is 7. 5 minus 0 is 5. Bring down our decimal. And 7 minus 4 is 3. And then we are going to use the sign of the larger number, which again is that 7 62/100ths. So our answer is going to be positive. So it's a positive 3.57. Alright, in example B, you'll notice that we have a negative 4 3/10 plus a negative 8 15/100. So both of our numbers are negative, so we're going to keep that negative sign in our answer, and then we can just add those numbers together. Alright, so we got 4 3/10 plus 8 15/100. Now I'm going to put a 0 here just as a placeholder, and then we can add. 0 plus 5 is 5. 3 plus 1 is 4. Bring down our decimal. 4 plus 8 is 12. Alright, and then both of our numbers were negative, so our answer is going to be a negative. So we have a negative 12 45/100. Make sure that you have these two examples written down in your math notes before you move on. Alright, the third thing that we're going to write down is a couple practice problems, and you're going to do these on your own and then come back and see how you did. So go ahead and pause the video now, write these problems out, try them out, come back and see how you did. For example A, we have 65/100ths plus a negative 2 75/100ths. So they have different signs, so we're going to subtract and keep the sign of the larger number, which that 2.75 is a larger number than 65/100ths. So we're going to keep that negative sign in our answer. So we set it up, 2.75 minus 65/100ths, and then we are ready to do the math. 5 minus 5 is 0. 7 minus 6 is 1. Bring down our decimal. 2 minus 0 is 2. And the sign of the larger number is that negative in front of that 2 75/100ths. So our answer is going to be negative. Negative 2 10/100ths. Alright. The example B, we have 3 different numbers. 2 of them are positive and 1 are negative. Or 1 is negative. So you could do this a couple different ways. You could either go from left to right and do them all together, or you could combine these positive numbers together and then subtract that negative, or then add the negative 18 9/10 after you combine the positives. And for me, I'm going to go ahead and add the positives together and then worry about that negative number last. Okay, so I wrote down my positive numbers, lined up the decimal, and now I'm ready to do the math. 4 plus 6 is 10, so I'm going to put my 0 down, carry the 1, bring down my decimal, and we have 1 plus 3 is 4, 4 plus 4 is 8. Alright, and then 1 plus 0 is 1. Okay, so now we have the two positives, and now we need to combine that negative 18.9. And so because we have a positive and a negative, our answer is going to be the sign of the larger number, and 18.9 is greater than 18, so our answer is going to be negative. So to set this up, I'm going to go 18.9 minus 18.0. Alright, we got our decimals lined up, and now we can subtract. 9 minus 0 is 9. Bring down our decimal. 8 minus 8 is 0. 1 minus 1 is 0. So we have 9/10. And because the negative 18.9 is greater than the 18, our answer is going to be a negative 0.9. Alrighty, let's look at a couple more examples here. So now we're going to shift to looking at distance, the distance between numbers, which is also called the range. So go ahead and pause now and get these notes down in your notebook. Finding the distance. Distance is range, or it's the bigger number minus the smaller number, and it's always positive. And so I would like you just to watch as I go through an example here. So I'm going to find the distance between negative 1.5 and 3.5, and one way that is very helpful to find the distance between two numbers is to use a number line. So I'm going to use a number line here, and 3.5 is going to be over this way here. 3.5, a positive 3.5, and then negative 1.5 is going to be right here. Okay, and now we can count our steps. So if we start at negative 3.5 and jump back, so that would be from 3.5 to 2.5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the distance between negative 1.5 and 3.5 is 5. And we can also look at this, we can do this as a mathematical problem. And if we remember our notes, these two have different signs. So we have a negative and a positive. So we're going to subtract, and we're going to keep the sign of the larger number. So if we set this up, it's going to look like 3.5 minus a negative 1.5. Okay, and remember, when we're subtracting a negative, it's the same as adding a positive. So we can remember, if we have this negative, subtracting a negative, it's really the same as adding positive. So we can also say 3.5 plus 1.5. So if we write that here, 5 plus 5 is 10. Put our 0, carry the 1. Bring down our decimal. 1 plus 3 is 4. Plus 1 is 5. Okay, so you'll see there, you can find the distance between the two numbers by using a number line, or as well as doing a little arithmetic, adding or subtracting. Okay, so now make sure you got this written down in your notes, and then I'm going to have an example for you to try on your own. Alright, so I'd like you to pause here and try to do this problem on your own. Find the distance between negative 4.5 and 3.5. And then come back and see how you did. So remember, we just wrote down in our notes that when we're finding the distance, we can subtract the smaller number from the bigger number, or the bigger number minus subtract the smaller number. So in this situation, we have 3.5 minus a negative, 3.5 and a negative 4.5. So first we're going to look at that on a number line. And so here I got a number line, and we got 3.5 will be over here, 3.5, and then a negative 4.5 will be here. And then we can count our steps back to, from 3.5 back to a negative 4.5. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the distance between 3.5 and negative 4.5 is 8. And just so we can check our answer, let's do it mathematically. The bigger number, which is 3.5, minus the smaller number, which is negative 4.5. And again, remember, when we are subtracting a negative, it's the same as adding a positive, so we can make this big positive sign, and that will be 3.5 plus 4.5. And we can do the math. 5 plus 5 is 10. Put our 0, carry the 1, bring down our decimal. 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. So again, that checks out as well. We can use a number line to find the answer, and we can do it mathematically.